tried to claim Jodi was the culprit, she was the one to blame. But in this silly town, where mischief's all around, Jodi's little tale became quite renowned. It's Jodi Day, it's Jodi Arias Day. Come along and join us in our playful little play. But remember, my friends, that the truth will always win in this town of make-believe, where the fun begins.
That
Welcome.
Welcome, folks. That intro
Love
is
that.
still, and it's so
Sorry, we're
inappropriate.
talking over each other. You know what? Maybe there's a lag. I think there's a lag. But welcome, everybody. Welcome to Jodi Day, one of the final Jodi days.
Yeah.
We don't have very many left.
No,
we have this one, 2 more weeks, and then we're going on hiatus for a bit while we both tour our respective continents.
Yeah. Dave will be going. He heard that I'm going to the United States, so he is running away.
Yes, I'm running to Denmark.
No, but
and
I
then
will.
And then we'll be back here together.
Yeah, around August 1920, something like that.
Yeah.
I will be in Michigan, and then we will have the final episode in Dave's treehouse.
That's why I haven't been streaming from it, because it's all torn down. I'm remodeling for the sake of my foreign friend who's coming.
Yeah,
and
he's reinforcing it with 4x8s, and
I didn't want to insult you by saying I had to reinforce the structure of it, but yeah, that's essentially what I'm doing. And I'm gonna try to take Nick out sailing, and hopefully he knows how to swim, so that'll be a good time.
I know how to float.
I'm sailing him to Canada. I'm just gonna leave him there.
Oh, look at that little island. Do you see that? Can you go get that for me? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, then, Dave, here it is. Dave.
On the other side of me is the little sailing dinghy that I'm building, and I'm hoping to have it done so that when you come, I could just send you off in it and be like, oh, let's go check out that island, and then you can just float away. But yeah, so that's what we got coming on. Also, for those of you who are awarded mugs, I finally got the design down for the mugs, and those will be here. I don't know if I want to. I told Nick that I was going to keep it as a surprise, but the idea is that when we're in the treehouse for the final episode, you guys will all have your mugs. So that's the plan.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
It'd be a good plan. It's a good plan.
Definitely. Hey, Evolve Recovery. And I saw earlier Gwendolyn lost her cousin this morning. So yeah, fuck cancer.
The current treehouse is 3/4 scale. Yeah, I'm okay. So it has real windows and a real door, but it's still small, and I made it for kids. So.
Yeah,
it moves and shakes. It's much like a boat. It's just in the air.
So I'm leaning against one wall, and then you see me. Whoa!
So we're gonna reinforce it a touch. And the other thing is it's hot in there, and I have an air conditioning unit, but it doesn't do much when there's not insulation and paneling on the wall or drywall of some sort. So yeah, we're gonna be doing a lot to it, and then we can fit you in there. It'll be a good time.
It will be. Oh, but
the sun coming through your window makes your beard glow like you're a saint. Yeah, it doesn't work for the head.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a lot. When I'm gone, there's going to be a lot done here because I'm still living in this area over here. So once I'm in the States, there will be some things being done here for the home office and bedroom and stuff. So
Nice.
everything will be. So might as well when I'm away. And
Hey, Jelly.
hello,
By the way, we
Doug.
could say hi to everybody in chat.
Mm.
Fedorovsky and Siri Frank Otter.
Mm.
Sir Frank Otter. Sir Frank Otter.
Yeah, Sir Frank. Your pronunciations.
I'm horrible with names. The Stock Snatcher. I like that name. Yeah.
If you want to know how bad Dave is on names, gift 20 memberships and I will have Dave read it.
I won't read them. I only read gifted memberships on my channel, sir.
But you're not monetized.
I know. That's the one. That's like the best thing about not being monetized. I don't have to read names. Soder, by the way, so the other day, I got a message from this woman randomly on, the trolls, the women that are just whatever, or it's a guy pretending to be a woman just gathering information about you on DM on Twitter. And so the question was like, hey, what do you like to eat around there or whatever? And so my response I thought was highly appropriate. And it was just lots of penis, pig penis, sheep penis, goat penis, all kind of penis. That was my response. I tweeted it out. And then like a week later, she responded.
Okay, my
"Seems
monetization
like a
is
wild
fucked.
topic. Do you want to talk about something else?" And I said, "No, let's just talk about that." And then it keeps going on and on and on. And I said, "Well, that's certainly a unique hobby." Or no, she said, "That's certainly a unique hobby. Besides that, what do you like playing games, watching any shows?" And I said, "I really enjoy this channel and particularly this playlist." And then I shared Dolly's Mark Jensen playlist with it. So I wanted to know if there's like, does he have any new subscribers? Have that playlist got an uptick recently? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
And the funny thing is that I keep screenshotting the messages and tweeting them out. So I don't think this person is actually following me on Twitter because otherwise they'd probably comment. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Dolly said he did get a couple of new subs. That's awesome. I'm trying to spread the good word.
Yeah.
Because as Wicked Wookie correctly surmises, I am retired. So I'm just trying to build up others, in my retirement.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
But yeah, so we have the rest of closing arguments, right?
Yep.
They were so long. The rambling, incoherent nonsense of this prosecutor, he won in spite of himself. That's what I'm going to say. He won because Jodi is that bad.
Yeah.
And again, I wanted to watch this trial to see how prosecutions were done 10 years ago, because we see a lot of shenanigans and a lot of BS today. This trial is not that up and up on the prosecution. It's just the facts were so bad against Jodi. A bumbling, incoherent prosecutor did not cause an acquittal. That's essentially what it boils down to.
Yeah, but now we are going to hear the rest of it. So,
all right, settle in.
I'm going to go back when he's quoting a conversation. Sound, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm going to turn my volume down.
1.25. Here we go.
And I only have to point out to the point as far as the May 10th, 2008 conversation in terms of showing that she has no problems lying on the telephone, where she says, well, yeah, I was faking it. And you know what she said she was faking, even though you heard her squealing like a cat. No, that's just me faking it. And you know why? Because I need two hands. That's why she was faking it. Okay, well, if you can lie
like this?
On May 10th of 2008 on the telephone to Mr. Alexander, what makes us think that you can't lie about what you and he talked about on June 3rd of 2008? And remember, she's got this history all along, not only of lying outside of the courtroom, but she has sat in the witness stand. a place where you have taken an oath, a place that is sacrosanct in finding the truth, has sat on that witness stand, looked at each and every one of you in the eye, and lied to you, specifically the gas cans, specifically about Priceline. And
The
another
defense counsel is shaking her
she
head.
said, oh, you know, he was starting to kick me. He broke my finger. He didn't get any medical care, but he broke my finger. Or alternatively, I actually was working at Casa Ramos before I went. And when I was at Casa Ramos, or Margaritaville, one of the two, you take your pick, because that's what you told Mr. Burns. And either I went up against one of the edges, the metal edges, and it cut me, or alternatively, it was a margarita glass. No, and then she takes the witness stand and says, well, in terms of the damage to the finger, I actually damaged the finger when I was at Mr. Alexander's home on June 4th of 2008, but the glass was that. That's how it happened. What story are you going to believe from this individual? And that's the issue here as to when she tells you something, what are you going to believe? And so she leaves that area, and off she goes. Drives to Pasadena. We know that telephone calls with Mr. Alexander are after that, but she drives to Pasadena. And then something that is so bizarre happens to her. It seems that there's this coincidental horde of skateboarders in Pasadena. That's the way the kids are there in Pasadena. They go in hordes, these skateboarders. And this horde of skateboarders, well, they carry screwdrivers. That's one of the things. If you're going to be in this horde of skateboarders, you have to have a screwdriver. That's what you got to do. Or else you're not allowed in this particular club out in Pasadena. And you can get a strawberry frappuccino or whatever it is that you get at Starbucks when you go there. Be careful, because when you go in to get this strawberry frappuccino, things are going to happen to your license plate if you run across this horde of skateboarders with this screwdriver. And so when she was questioned about that in cross-examination, one of the things that she said was, well, yeah, I was pulling out.
He's trying to come up with a new nickname for her.
And I was pulling out and I saw something flat on the ground. And when challenged on that, if you see something flat on the ground, what makes you think that you can go and pick it up? What in God's name would ever motivate you to go and pick this up, especially if you were afraid of this horde of skateboarders in Pasadena? Because she did say that she was concerned for her safety.
I'm afraid of skateboarders.
Why even get out of the car?
Pasadena.
If you don't even know what it is, and if you don't even know that it's related to the car. And she said, I didn't.
I'm afraid of skateboards no matter if it's Pasadena. I kind of hurt myself.
I'm going to go get my skateboard. It's sitting right over there. I'm going to scare him.
Oh, no!
Okay, so what he's talking about, though, is a little silly. Like, because she took off her license plate. And did she put it on upside down, or did she just not put it on? Yeah, she put it on upside down. She was like, "Oh, well, there was this gang of skateboarders, so I was afraid that they were gonna steal my license plate," which I could feel like could be a scare in that time and place, because in the back of my mind somewhere there's like a news story about a bunch of people stealing license plates, and I feel like maybe isolated to a certain time and location that could be a legitimate fear. But it's kind of silly to think about. Yeah. Your license plate is on upside down. Why change your license plate in the first? Why put it on upside down in the first place? And then why come up with this story? Anyways.
Yeah.
It was related to car. I didn't know what it was. And she's having problems with the truth there because remember, she remembers that she's got the license plate in the back. That she's got to deal with this issue involving the license plate in the back and whether or not they're connected. And she said, oh, I don't even know what the license plate was. I didn't even look in the back. When challenged further, she said, oh, wait a minute. No. It wasn't flat. It was actually standing up. And it was standing up, and I was able to reflect and realize that it was these, not square, she corrected the prosecutor, rectangular. Remember that? It was rectangular object that she recognized as a license plate. And if you don't have any suspicion whatsoever that it has anything to do with your car, why then? Why would you even get out of the car and go look when you're scared to get a license plate? Why on God's green earth would you do that? When you're lying, that's when you would do that. That's exactly when you would do that. But she says, oh, I went and got it, and I really couldn't tell the numbers, and I didn't compare it to the back. So now you're a thief. Somebody else's license plate is sitting out there. You don't know it's yours. Potentially, if it's not yours, it's somebody else's. They may potentially come back for it. So what are you doing? You're stealing it. You're depriving them of the opportunity to have the front license plate, which is obviously required in the state of California because this car had two of them. So that's what you're doing there, because she didn't check to see if it corresponded with the one in the back. And the reason that she's having problems with that is because, as you know, in West Jordan, Utah, the one in the back is upside down. Like somebody took it off. And like somebody put it in the backseat of the car when they arrived at Travis Alexander's house so that the car would be able to be identified to them. Just like that. That's, but she can't admit that. And that's why she's having problems with this license plate that's out there in this parking lot. And she ends that conversation with the prosecutor during cross-examination by saying, oh, well, I didn't see numbers or whatever, because you know what? I can't see. I needed glasses back then. So I really couldn't see. So I just grabbed it, and it had bugs on it, and so I thought it was mine. So without any regard to whether or not it really is hers, throws it in the back seat of the car. Who does that? No one does that. Making it up. And she's making it up because she got stopped in West Jordan, Utah, and has to explain how it is that the front license plate got into the car. Because this horde of skateboarders from Pasadena, they can't get into her car. So she has to be the one to do it. And the only way that she can say that she's the one to do it is to make up a story. And she made up the story about these skateboarders. I guess it's this wild board kind of thing where you have to have the screwdriver. They're the ones that did it. And she's making that up. She's lying to you about it. And the reason she's lying to you is because in West Jordan, Utah, that license plate was found in her car. So one of the other things that she doesn't, okay, we can stop.
Thus, please be back in the designated area at 1:30. We will start promptly at that time. Please remember the admonition, no excuse for lunch.
Just as like we all need a break from this. We all need a break.
And
Did she think she made herself look modest with that top?
I don't know.
She does look so much better now, though, than she did back then.
The record will show
How
the jury
old
has left
was
the
she again?
courtroom. We are at recess.
I can't remember how old she was.
Yeah. And remember to
Please be
subscribe
seated.
to
The record will show the
Vielhammer
presence of the
Media.
jury. The defendant and all counsel, Mr. Martinez, you may continue with your closing argument.
Defendant had made her way to Pasadena along with her will to kill Mr. Alexander in the evening of June 3rd of 2008. And she stopped at the Starbucks. And after stopping at the Starbucks, or as part of the stop, she decided to fill up. And we know that she had the 3 gallons of gas, or the 3 gas cans at the point, based on the receipts that are before you. And the reason that she had those gas cans filled is so that now she was prepared to make it all the way through Arizona without having to stop for gasoline. And she, on her direct testimony and also part of cross-examination, indicated that, well, the car, for whatever reason, had a bad engine, for lack of a better term. It kept using gas so much, trying to manipulate you into thinking that she stopped at a number of places and used all the gas in the gas cans. But there are no records or any other corroborative evidence that indicates that she stopped anywhere here in the state of Arizona for gasoline. So her plan, if you will, was working well at that point. She wanted to kill him. There was no way that anybody would be able to say that she was even in the state of Arizona, because the defense would have been, well, I would have had to have stopped for gas. And there was no indication anywhere, and there is no indication anywhere that she stopped for gas in the state of Arizona. Another thing that she did as she came into the state of Arizona is she turned off her telephone. And this telephone, the cell phone that she had, was turned off so that it could not be traced by law enforcement. So now not only do you have her in a vessel, an automobile that will not be traced to the state of Arizona, you also have her with a telephone that is turned off. She gave several reasons to different people as to why the telephone was turned
You
off.
want to answer this
One of
question?
them that she gave to Ryan Burns was that somehow it had lost.
what is this? Who is this Jodi chick? Oh,
I think Justin knows, but I don't know if you want to give a recap.
Jodi Arias ended her boyfriend's life via stabby, shooty.
In that order.
In that order. And then took off to make out with her new boyfriend. A few days later, she contacted the investigators for some odd reason. Just, maybe I have information. I wasn't there, but maybe I have information. And the or the investigators got a little bit suspicious. Okay, talk. And she talked, and she talked, and she talked. And during the second interview, she was arrested. And then she started talking again. Oh, no, she was there, but it was ninjas. Two people in dark clothing and or jeans who ended Travis. Let me go, because that is what hired killers do.
Well, first of all, the reason she changed her story to "I wasn't there" to "I was there, but ninja did it" is because she took photographs of herself at the time and accidentally, in the process, and left the camera behind in a washing machine that she thought would destroy the evidence.
Mhm.
So they had her there, and then she changed her story to "I was there, but two ninjas did it."
Yeah. And then further down the line, that changed again to the defense we hear here. And she did it, but it was self-defense because Travis attacked her.
Yeah, he was abusive.
Mm.
And so most of this trial, not most of this trial, a lot of this trial has been her lies, calling out all of her lies, including the fact that she broke her finger months prior when there's no photograph evidence of it, but you can clearly see that it was broken and healed. The prosecution says that she most likely did it while she was attacking Travis. She cut her finger. And yeah, all kinds of nonsense. Oh, she's also known as the three-hole wonder because that's how Travis identified her to his friends. She was basically several holes in which he could fill at his whim. She wanted a little more.
Yep.
So that's about it. Three-hole wonder.
it.
Yeah, there you go. Three-hole wonder. So we're at closing arguments now. The state is maybe halfway through his closing argument. It's rambling, incoherent nonsense, but we get the gist.
Yeah.
It's charged, and that she had lost the charger, and somehow she'd been able to buy it at some store. That was her story, and then she was able to charge the telephone so that she then was able to call him near Hoover Dam. Another story that she gave was that when she stopped on the side of the road and she was cleaning up from killing Mr. Alexander, she actually was able to go underneath the seat and find the charger. Either way, the net effect of that was that as she came into Arizona, there was no electronic trail of her being here, and there was no physical trail of her coming through. And this was done for the purpose. She knew that she was coming to kill him. There is no other reason why you would turn off your telephone as you're coming through here, especially this woman who clearly loved to use her telephone, but for this particular trip, for this time when she's approaching Mesa, telephone is off. And it doesn't come on until sometime later near Hoover Dam, again indicating she was never in the Mesa area. And without the electronic trail, it would have been difficult for the police to find that out. So now you have her in a position where she can come to Arizona and no one's going to know. She's in a car that's white, not red, so the police are not going to stop her. And she shows up with a gun and a knife. And she shows up to see Mr. Alexander. And if you remember that one of the things that she told the police officer, she always, whenever it was not to her benefit, would say, well, no, I was lying then. As if somehow that's a fallback position. As if somehow that's something to be rewarded. That, oh, I lied. So because I have admitted that I lied, you should put that in the good column. Forgetting that she lied to start with, and she lied to cover up the killing. And so she indicated that to this officer in a telephone call, and by this officer I mean Detective Esteban Flores, that she knew the code to his garage, 0187. And so she knew the code to the garage, and she indicated that that's how she came in. She didn't knock on the front door. She didn't go out through the back and peep through the sliding glass doors like she'd done before. She actually walked in. There's no indication that Mr. Alexander came through the door. And this was sometime after 4 o'clock in the morning. And as she came in, one of the things that's telling about what happened is that she said, I came in and I stood by the door and I watched him. And I watched him for 30, 45 seconds. Who does that? Who comes in and stands there? Someone with some sort of stalking behavior in their past? Someone who's riding there unannounced? Someone who is there to surprise Mr. Alexander. Mr. Alexander happens to be awake. He's got the dog Napoleon with him, and the dog barks, and there's this hello, how are you kind of thing. And at that point, she says that either she does bring her stuff in or she doesn't bring her stuff in. She may have brought her camera at that point. And we also know that she brought in her purse. And her purse is big enough for this toy-looking 25 caliber handgun. It's also big enough for a knife. She comes in, and according to her they go to sleep. There's no sexual activity between them at that point. If Mr.
I believe
Alexander
her.
was this sexual fiend that she has attempted to portray, why didn't he just force himself on her there? And she said, well, at that point, I told him that I was tired and that I did not want to have sex. So whenever she said no, Mr. Alexander abided by that. The only time that she ever indicated that no, she didn't want to have sex with him, he abided by that. And they went to sleep until the next day. The next day, they do engage in some sexual contact. And there's such a stigma that the defendant has attempted to attach to this particular encounter. In fact, she goes so far as to speak with Richard Samuels, Dr. Richard Samuels, and tell him about this, and tells him that these photographs were actually taken while she was straddling Mr. Alexander. Additionally, she talks about how Mr. Alexander has on his computer all these photographs of women's breasts. Just has to add all of this to make Mr. Alexander be something that he is not, or have this encounter be something
Don't
that
go
it
on
isn't.
my computer.
He did not go to Yreka to seek her out. She
Don't
drove
go on
here
Sal's
to the
computer.
state of Arizona to Mesa to see him. Yes, he did have a camera, and yes, it was used. Thank God he had the camera, because that's the reason why we're standing here, because of the images captured on that camera. And so they engaged in this sexual contact. And there's this, again, this religious sort of overtone, somehow that she's holier than thou, that it was all of at his request. It was all about him. It was nothing about her. And that he's somehow violative of the concepts or the precepts of the Mormon faith. Why is that important? It's important because she wants to manipulate you. She wants you to believe that, wow, he's such a bad guy. He's holding himself out to be a virgin. And somehow that's really, really bad. That when people date or when people talk about their sexual lives, they somehow don't want everybody to know everything that's going on. If you remember, Deanna Reed indicated that, yes, they had transgressed. They had engaged in sexual contact, but they went to see the bishop. They got whatever penance or whatever punishment or whatever happened, but they never engaged in that contact again. Somehow the defendant wants to make it seem that Mr. Alexander kept constantly going. He was this individual who had lost his priesthood or had not, and somehow that this encounter was a microcosm of their whole relationship. Well, if it is a microcosm of their whole relationship, then we have the willing partner sitting right here, somebody who enjoyed it just as much as he did. One hand or two hands, she enjoyed it as much as he did. There are no indications in those photographs other than from their experts who say, look at the face. You can tell by the face that she really doesn't want to be there. Really? Can you tell by a grimacing face whether that's pain or joy? Can you tell that by just looking at somebody's face, especially if we're talking about a sexual situation? You can't. But they come in and they want to tell you that because they have a psychology degree or they have a master's degree. And they want to tell you that.
What did you say?
I said I like to think I can tell the difference if a woman is enjoying it or is definitely not enjoying it. You know.
Well, my SO tells me, but generally,
I prefer
don't
a
know.
dialogue with some feedback.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, or as, who was it? It was a comedian that said, he got the question one time, do you suffer from premature splooshy? And he said, well, I don't.
I don't suffer from it, right? I thought they were always faking. Well, I mean that could be too, but yeah, I don't know. The way he says things are funny. This prosecutor.
Don't believe what you see in your eyes. Don't use your common sense or the experiences that you have coming in here. Believe what we have to say. And by looking at those photographs, you can see that this was all about Mr. Alexander. And again, that's just a microcosmic view, if you will, of this whole relationship where she says, I really never wanted to do it, but it was all about him. And yet, if you look at the photographs, there's no indication there that she really didn't want to do it. She was enjoying it as much as he was. And so they engage in this conduct, these two Mormons. So stop pointing a finger at him and stop wagging it as if somehow being a Mormon precludes you from being human. So stop pointing a finger at him and stop wagging it as if somehow being a Mormon precludes you from being human.
Oh,
somehow that's
it's starting again. It jumps back a few seconds.
I just love the phrase "stop wagging it." Because there's so many things that Jodi could have been wagging other than her finger. But there was a pause, and then it was stop wagging it. That was great.
Something bad that he did, because she's just as Mormon as he is. So if there are fingers to be pointed, it should be pointed at each other. And if one's conduct is bad, the other one is just as bad.
According to Jodi,
That's not
you
what
need
this
to
case
use
is
both
about.
hands.
And they want you to think that that's what this case is about, that this is about Mormonism and the fact that Mr. Alexander was engaging in sexual intercourse. What those photographs show was that she was there. And they show you the time that she was there sometime after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so you know that at about 1:30, they are.
This is from the original stream, this jumping back once in a while. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know why it's happening.
All right.
Your closing arguments lately have been a bit rough, Nick.
Yeah.
Yesterday's was so
Oh, it was so
annoying.
bad. It was so annoying.
I want to blame it on Nick.
Sure.
Consummating, if you will,
word.
their feelings for each other, at least on a physical level. No indication there of anything else other than perhaps Mr. Alexander has adopted what the defendant has provided for him, because you do see the KY bottle in some of those photographs, and you do know who introduced that into the relationship from the May 10th, 2008 conversation, where Mr. Alexander thanked her for introducing him to that. We don't know who brought that on that particular day, but it could be reasonably inferred. We're not saying that it happened, that she brought it. She's the one that introduced him to it. Perhaps he already had it there. Either way, that's symbolic, if you will, of her attentiveness to this sexual, perhaps he already had it there. Either way, that's symbolic, if you will, of her attentiveness to this sexual relationship that they had. And so later on in the afternoon, toward getting later, sometime after 5, the defendant says, and it depends on what you listen, or what version you listen to, that at that point, Mr. Alexander wanted to show off his body, according to her. And he wanted her to take photographs of him. You've heard the tape of her conversation with Detective Flores. That was taken when, and how she loved the way he shaved because it was old-fashioned. And then she starts talking about how, yes, she is able to get him to get into the shower and take photographs of that. And it really is. And then she starts talking about how, yes, she is able to get him to get into the shower and take photographs of that. And it really is more of her idea than his. And the only reason that the state can say that it is really more idea than his is if you hearken back, think back to what Darrell Brewer told you. One of the things that he was asked on direct or cross-examination was, when he was on the witness stand, were there ever any photographs that were taken of you by the defendant? And he said, yes, only on one occasion were there photographs taken of me. I didn't want them taken. I was in the shower when she started to snap the photograph. Wanted me to do it.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that Travis
in the same
didn't
case,
want the
you have her
photos.
saying that, no, he did not want her to do it.
That's a
But
different guy.
he then starts taking photographs, and according to her, very sexy. But at that point, the ill will was already there. She is armed with both a knife and a gun at that point. And she begins to take these photographs. And as she takes these photographs, even though she says they are of a Calvin Klein kind of quality, the water coming down as if it was sort of a Pacific, a very quiet, bucolic kind of scene.
Calvin Klein.
That's not what's going on. She talked earlier about a knife, justifying how a knife would have been upstairs by saying that there was this 20-foot rope, and that somehow she was tied up with that 20-foot rope to that bed. And it depends on who she's talking to as to whether or not she was tied on her ankles as well as her wrists. But you've taken a look at that sleigh bed. Where is she going to be tied up on that bed?
Did he say
Making
slave
up,
bed?
Trying to justify or trying to have a knife there for some other purpose. But if you take a look at that bed, and you've seen it, you know that she's making it up. Just making it up. If she's not making it up, then why has she told some of the experts that she was tied by her ankles around the foot of the bed? Why does she tell somebody else that it was both her ankles and wrists? Why does she need to keep changing positions? Because she has a lot to remember. And with the truth, you ain't got nothing to remember. But she has a lot to remember. And it's a lot for her to keep
Wait, you ain't got nothing to remember? That's how he says that.
And so, given the facts as we know them, and the fact that there was no rope, because it would have required her to clean up in the bedroom, because that's where the rope was. And if she was all bloody, because we do know that the floor was all bloody, it was also very wet. it was either wet with water, which is white, or it was wet with blood, which is red, Mr. Alexander's blood. It would have required her to go into the rest of the bedroom and leave some trail of that. And there's nothing there. So it means there was no rope there, and there was no knife there for her to get. It means that she had both the knife and, or at least the knife at the time of the attack. And so what happens then is that she's standing there. And then we have this photograph. Exhibit 160.
Ooh, show it again. What is that?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to show it.
No, that's him on the shower. I don't think he's unalived.
I think
This is the last photograph of Mr. Alexander.
Yeah.
Oh, that is when he's unalived.
This is the last photograph of Mr. Alexander. There,
Yeah, repeat that.
not only is he defenseless, he does not have a gun, he does not have a knife,
I don't
he
want.
doesn't have any weapon whatsoever.
Yeah, he's
Not only does he not have
unalived
that,
at this point.
he doesn't have any clothing on. And
Those
as he
pictures
sits
are in my
there,
Discord if you really
he
want to.
doesn't have any dignity either. She's taken that away from him. And if anybody, and as he sits there, he doesn't have any dignity either. She's taken that away from him. And if anybody is defenseless, in this case, it isn't the defendant, it's Travis Alexander, as he sits like that in that shower with his killer standing there dressed in pants, presumably a top on, because there's no indication that she didn't have a top on, with his camera.
Well,
And
she
she
could have been
starts
nude.
snapping this. Part of the story of hers that you would have to be in the sharpness of this photograph. There's nothing accidental about this. Somebody held the photograph, or the camera, firmly. The defendant held it firmly as she pressed the button and took this photograph, the last live photograph of Mr. Alexander. And while she had that in that position where he is in the inferior position to her, he's down. She's standing up.
It
She
is
can
kind of
approach
weird
him.
that she took that picture.
And she can approach him as he's sitting there. And she did. No doubt about that. This is not a case of whether or not there was an attack here, whether or not it wasn't her. It's her. And it's him. And it's the man that she has just had sex with. And it's this individual that she has planned to kill all the way from May 28th of 2008, days, even though the premeditation statute only requires a certain period of time. Doesn't require days, doesn't require planning, requires thinking. And so, she's been
If what
thinking
the
about
state
it
is
for-
saying is true, that she planned on unaliving him, drove all the way there in a way to cover her tracks, rent a car, buy gas out of the state, all this stuff. And then she got there, had sex with him, and then unalived him. I believe she deserves the death penalty, and I'm surprised she didn't get it.
Yeah. I mean, on principle, I am against the death penalty, but sometimes my objections are very, very silent.
Yeah. I'm just
long
surprised
time
she didn't
because she
get
came
it.
very prepared. And before she even went in there, one of the other preparations that she took was to take the license plate off the car. So now she's inside. Now she's got him like that. Can anybody think of how anything else could be so much colder or without feeling for the person than to make?
You know what? That's a good question. Since when is water white? He did say water is white, blood is red.
Yeah.
I think he's thinking of milk.
Yeah.
He got confused, you know.
We
Why
have
is there a sidebar?
there was an objection. He was talking to the jury saying, can you think of something colder? That is the put yourselves in his shoes, which you can't say.
I couldn't think. I don't see why that's necessarily. He's making the argument that it is a cold activity.
It is cold. It is thinking. It is premeditated. To go up to this individual, someone that she has planned to kill for days, someone with whom she has been intimate with, and then attack him. She has indicated to you that it was a shot to the head, but the evidence, the forensic evidence, speaks otherwise. And for you to believe her, and for you to believe that the shot was first, you will need to set aside everything that she's told you, for example, the gas cans, everything else that she has told you, including the fact that she lied to the police, including the fact that she lied to the experts, including the fact that she lied here. And then you have to say, even though she's lied all of these times, even though she's looked us in the face and lied to us, we're now going to believe her with regard to just this one particular aspect. That is not something that is available to you, I submit. And I submit that because of everything that she has said. And so she gets her knife. And she took that knife and stabbed her right front here. The reason that we know that she did that is because Mr. Alexander has defensive wounds. And he has defensive wounds to his left and to his right hand. As she is stabbing him, he is alive and he is cognizant of it, and he begins to grab at the knife. But unfortunately for Mr. Alexander, one of the knife wounds is to the heart. Doesn't mean he's going to die immediately. It means he's just going to die. And part of the dying process includes, because of it's the heart, blood coming from his mouth and blood coming out from the wounds. But he's not going to die immediately. He's going to take some time, minutes, to bleed out. But he is going to die. So in a sense, she has already killed him. He's dead. Well, you know that he gets up at some point. You know that he doesn't remain seated there, because throughout the bathroom, where there's the mat, where there's the scale, all around the bathroom, everywhere, there's blood. And if there's blood everywhere, that means there is movement there. And it isn't the kind of movement that is the flopping of the fish kind of movement. It is movement, it's purposeful movement on the part of Mr. Alexander to save his life. And as this time is going by, again, premeditation does not take days. Premeditation does not take a plan. Premeditation just takes time. And it can be a shorter amount of time. The stab wounds, for example, after the first stab wounds, could be that. And as he is in this position of dying, he then ambulates. And we know that she didn't carry him over to the sink. We know that he goes there by himself. And one of the things that you see there is this, 98. That's the sink. And that's the sink with his blood on it after he has been stabbed. The reason that you know that he has already been stabbed at this point is because of the patterns that you have on this particular photograph, right here on the left. And remember the injuries to the hand. He had more stab wounds to the left hand than he did to the right hand. And one of the patterns that was described here was this smudge or this transfer. So that if he, and remember, he had more injuries to his hand. That's not something that she can tell you he doesn't, but you've looked at the photograph. You don't need to believe that. You can believe the photograph. And he does have an injury, a slight injury to his right hand. But if he's standing here, this would be where his left hand is. And you can see that there's the smudge or the transfer as he moves that way. As he's falling, moving away, indicating movement. He's still alive, but he's bleeding. That red stuff there, it's blood. And you also have the drops here. And those are placed there by gravity. If this individual has blood in his mouth, and if you remember that
I think you're right. Jodi didn't
medical
think
examiner
about how much
testified that
blood
if
there
you
would
do have an
be.
injury to the
Mm.
heart, that's one of the things that happens. And as
I started saying that sometime last year, that she expected a Hollywood death. Stab, 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 slumping down, die. No, he stab, stab, stab. He
got up
realizes
and
what's
started
going
running.
on. He started running, holding on to the bathroom sink. Stab, stab, stab. Trying to get away out through the hallway. Stab, stab. And then shoot. And then she had to drag him back to the bathroom to position him in there. And there's a photo of it.
There's a photo of her dragging him back. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, she dropped the
She just went in
phone.
a full panic mode.
Yeah,
Yeah, no YouTube. That's ketchup, not blood.
yeah, that's theater things. Yeah,
So Yeah, it's just pretend. This is all pretend, YouTube. Justin, answer your question. So the state says that he was stabbed first and then shot, because if he was shot in the head the way he wouldn't have been able to like be up and about to be stabbed. Jodi says that he was coming after her, so she shot him. She ran to the closet to get his gun, shot him, and then he continued to come after her. So then she had the knife already because they had to cut the ropes off of her after she was tied down to the bed, even though there was no ropes discovered. And then she had to stab him after she shot him, which I don't know why you would change that order of operations. Doesn't make sense to me as to why you would need to do that, even if it was self-defense. Because I could conceive of a situation where you're defending yourself with a knife and then have to switch to a gun because the knife didn't work, right? I don't know. It was just a weird defense choice.
Yeah.
It requires Mr. Alexander to be standing there with his left arm like this. And as he's doing that, we do know that this is what's happening to him. She's stabbing him in the back. That's exhibit number 192. That's a concentric area. Exhibit 193 also shows us that. And he's also being stabbed, as you saw, in the back of the head as he stands at that sink. Because he is standing at that sink and he is bleeding, and the amount of blood that's at that sink is indicative of time. You just don't go over for a second and get those patterns. He stood there, which means that the defendant was there with a knife, stabbing him. The other pattern that you see there is this on the mirror. If you remember, the blood spatter person indicated that, well, yes, that can happen from, for example, gunshot wound, but it can also happen if somebody has blood in their mouth and they get hit in the back of the head. And that's called blood spatter, high velocity splatter. And what that means then is that Mr. Alexander was having some force applied to his head at the time that he was standing there. That's how you can know that exhibit 193 occurred when he was standing there and strikes to the head, because the splatter that is on the mirror indicates movement, hitting him, and then he goes and flies into the mirror. But he's not dead. He's still standing there. This woman that came to visit him.
She's reliving it in her mind as he's talking.
So he begins to go in a different direction. And we know that he begins to go down the hallway, and he's still standing. The reason that we know that he's still standing is if you take a look at exhibit 133. That's a blood transfer. It's either an item with blood came by or the blood was already there. Well, the item with blood in this case was Mr. Alexander. And as he's going by, you can see he was still
This
sort of
is still
standing.
closing.
And in
It's
this rainbow,
initial
somewhat
closing.
ironic, there is no good luck for him at the end of that rainbow. But you can see that it starts high. And it arcs down to the area where there's a larger amount of blood. He's stumbling down that way. But he's stumbling with somebody after him. He's trying to get away. He's trying to get away from her over there. And she may cry now. But the jury instructions have told you that sympathy is not to be considered in this particular case. No doubt that she did it. No doubt.
It's bad when the prosecutor's reacting to your
you can tell that
moment-to-moment reactions.
You can see that even clearer. And here, with regard to exhibit 132, that's the same view when showing the art there.
Actually, there should have been an objection there, because her crying at the table is
Just
not
for
evidence.
contrast, to show you that that
The
was
jury's to
part of what was
consider.
going on. If you take a look at the other side, the other wall, you can see that these are more at the bottom,
Hey,
indicative of substance with blood either rubbing it there or the blood already being there, and I am going through them, as opposed to this arc that we see here. She chases him down. That's what she did. He's still alive. how many stab wounds has she already given him at that point? The ones to the back? Do we really need to count the number of stab wounds to get? Is there a requisite number to get through the portal of death? No, not really. There's enough here to get him there. He's already got the one to the chest, which is going to kill him. He's already got the ones to the back of the head. They're not failed. And he's got the ones to his back. But they are accelerating his departure from Earth. Because the more he bleeds, the quicker he dies. You don't die immediately. And so, when he gets here, to the end of his rainbow, gets there to the end. And when he gets there, that's what she does. This is exhibit number 205. Slits his throat from ear to ear. Number 205. Volition, by his own movements, as he tried to get away from her. You know that because of the blood stain there. You know that because of exhibit 130, which shows you. And remember, the rainbow is right above there. Goes down, he collapses there. She catches up to him.
So I think
goes to
her
the front.
crying, I think her crying is not so much fake, and it's not so much crying for herself. It's like Chris Rock's bit when he's talking about waiting for the results of his AIDS test and thinking back to all the nasty ladies he'd been with. Oh, why did I do that? Why would I was with her? You know, I think it's more of a why did I do this sort of cry.
Yeah.
That's my speculation.
Yeah.
Is right above there. Goes down, he collapses there. She catches up to him and goes to the throat.
Is she
And
audibly
if you
crying?
want to believe her that she doesn't remember anything, doesn't know anything that's going on, why then? Why then? If she really doesn't know what's going on and can't remember, why is she so directed at a place where she can certainly cause death? If she really didn't know what was going on, if it was just really passion, if it was just a heat of passion, then you wouldn't have a directed hit to somewhere that's going to kill. You would have dispersed all over the thinking. This person's not going to live. He may get away from me in the shower. He may get away from me all the way to the sink. And he may stumble his way down that hallway. But you know, I caught him. And now, rather than stabbing him anywhere else, right here. So it's a very well orchestrated kill. And it takes time. By time, somebody takes time, people think. So she's now stabbed him, the guy. Somebody takes time, people think. So she's now stabbed him, the guy. Now he's tried to get away, went to the sink. And what's almost something to consider, another thing to consider while he's at the sink is that in front of the sink is a mirror. And as he's standing there, a mirror is reflective of what's going on behind him. And he has eyes. His eyes are still open at that point. He can see. He can see the defendant. But she's not done with him yet. And again, the point here is that if this were a heat of passion, if this were a situation where somebody was just upset, it would be random all over the place. But this was a strike to kill right at the neck. And then after she does that, one of the things that we know is that the shooting didn't take place there. The shooting took place near the sink where he had previously been standing. And so one of the things that they wanted you to believe was that if this person is shot and hit through the head, could have been shot there at the sink, according to them. It's already bleeding and still continued on. But the knife wounds do have to be first. Of course, that would violate the laws of nature because he's bleeding so profusely there that the doctor, by necessity, would have had to have found lots of blood in the track of the bullet, and he didn't. So if he was standing at the sink and he was shot at the sink after being stabbed, there would be lots of blood there, and the doctor did not find any there. So he clearly was shot after that, when the situation was such that his heart wasn't beating, a situation when the heart wasn't pumping enough blood to get it there. Bottom line, he was dead at the time that he was shot. In order to forensically get the result of no blood in the track of the bullet. So he falls there. And then we have more directed behavior. We have this, exhibit number 162. That's Mr. Alexander, that's blood, that's his foot, and that's her foot. And given the fact that we know that the bathroom is this way, that's her standing there. And what's important about that, if we look at this exhibit here, is that it looks like there's been a wildebeest migration near his head. Look at that. And what's important about that is that
There's a
even
wildebeest
though there is
migration.
the stomping of the feet, it just means she was over him, hovering him. How many times was she stamping around or stomping around there to get that pattern? But what's even more important about that is that there's nothing in the bedroom, which means that this was directed behavior at him. She was cognizant of what was going on, because if she would have been in this state that she wants you to think that she was in, then it would have been all over the bedroom. If she'd have been in this hysterical state that she describes for you, that she would run out, run into the bedroom, except it's in pristine shape.
Well, I think
What she does
kinda
then is she
stopped
begins
crying
to
now.
drag
She
her.
was really
And
crying.
again, we look at that one, and then exhibit 163, which is a bit later, you can see she's dragging him down the hallway. What that shows is an attempt to clean up. And as she's going by the sink again, you know that she does something else. What she does is this, exhibit 207. Shoots him in the head. There is no blood in that blood tract, which means the heart isn't pumping. And when the heart isn't pumping, he is dead. There is no other medical phenomenon or any other medical indications that would give any other indication. And if that's the case, then he's already dead. And then you have the casing from the .25 caliber handgun that you took during this staged burglary. And you have the casing right there, falling on top of the blood as she's dragging him back, because by necessity, the body has to be there. And if you remember, there's a closet that's up here, the sink is to the left, and the sink is to the left, and this falls to the right. One of the things that we've talked about is that the shot is right here. If she is dragging him in this fashion, that way, and she's pulling him along here, that would mean that it would be this portion of the head that was exposed, which if you're pulling somebody down the hallway, that's the result that you get. The casing is expelled and it lands on the blood that's already there. So that's when she delivers this shot to him, somebody that's already dead. So she's killed him 3 times over. Is that enough premeditation? Even though she's had all of this planning already, this was a very directed attack. And then she goes about the business of cleaning up. One of the most interesting things about the cleanup that she did is that, she knows about cameras. She knows what to do with cameras, according to her. And one of the things that she knows what to do with them is delete photographs. And she's able to look at all of the photographs that are on this camera. Let's assume, for example, that they've already deleted the ones involving the sex. This one right here, the inadvertent photographs, exhibit 162, for example, had to be deleted after he was dead. There's no way there is no time travel here, because that's really what they want you to believe. After this happened, she located the camera. And he's not carrying the camera as he's trying to survive. He couldn't care less about that camera as he's standing over the sink. So what does he do? He just tries to get away. So the camera getting there means that she is the person that was holding onto the camera and carried it to that location. Then, after she shoots him, she goes back, places him in the shower. At some point, either after shooting him at the sink or after placing him in the shower, at some point, she's still thinking. Because remember how much she has planned before. I got to get rid of this evidence. I got to delete this. What does she do? She deletes only certain images. It's not like all of the images are deleted. This shows somebody who was thinking, oh, I don't want to delete the one of his dog or this other one. I'll delete the only ones that hurt me. And that is directed behavior by somebody who claims to have dissociative amnesia. Dissociative amnesia, you heard what the definition of that was. Or is it a fog? Even the San Franciscan fog, if such a thing existed, wouldn't be so cloudy to account for this kind of behavior. There is no fog that someone can tell you about that hasn't lifted to allow for this. And so she cleans that up. She has that, and she cleans that up. The other thing that we know is that she takes the camera at some point from that area there. And again, what's important about that, yes, it's important where it was found, and yes, it's important that it was found in the washer. What was actually more important to show that she was thinking is that there are no steps leading from the bedroom down to the area where the camera was found that are bloody in nature or red, which means that she was cleaning herself up. Because if you're going to be walking around there, you by necessity are going to get it in your socks because that's what she's wearing. She would have had to get it on her socks. And if she's into this horrific hysterical state, she would have ran down and thrown it down there. But what she did is she cleaned herself up first. The police did not, and you looked at all the stairs, did not find anything that showed that there was any activity other than up in the bedroom, which means she cleaned up. She took her socks off and then maybe put her shoes on or maybe put different socks on. But definitely the item that she was wearing was taken off before that camera was taken downstairs and put in the washing machine. And it was put in the washing machine and put through a cycle. Oh, there's this big indication, or there's an indication she could have taken it with her. So what does that mean? It just means it's an alternative. But she has done so much already. Other things that she has done, according to her, is there was this glass underneath the sink area. And that's the glass that's found on top of Mr. Alexander after she cleaned him up. After she cleaned him up in the shower. We don't know if the glass was an afterthought or if it was used to actually clean him, but actually shows that she went to the sink, approached his body, and dropped it on top of him. But she cleaned him up, wanted to wash away anything or any contact or anything that would show her being there. Again, we're told about what DNA is and how it's left behind. But if somebody washes it away, it's just not going to be there. And that's another step that she took in staging this scene. She washed away all of her DNA from him. Could have turned on, we don't know if she turned on the shower. We don't know if she used the glass, but we do know that she cleaned up. And it isn't because she loved Mr. Alexander that she cleaned him up. Oh, it isn't that she wanted him to look good, even though he, with all due respect, he looked a little bit crunched up there. Wasn't that?
Yeah, he was this bad
The
during
matter of fact
opening.
of what she did.
Actually, his
is to
opening
destroy
was
any
better.
of her DNA. She washed it off.
He is rambling.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the timeline of what he does here is good, but it's so long.
It's so long. It doesn't need to be this long. It's so many freaking details that, I mean, I know there's a lot here, but you could just point to her lies. Just, point out a few lies and be done. Oh, I got a helicopter flying over.
It's
Might
the
be from
FBI.
the
Go in
Whitmer
hiding,
kidnapping
Dave.
trial.
It's the FBI. Do you have slightly inclining slopes on your roof?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then you're safe.
Yeah, no, his closing is definitely rambling, incoherent nonsense for most of it. Let's see here. Tiny Dancer asks, as a defense attorney, isn't bullet tool marks kind of junk science now? It's getting there. We don't have a definitive ruling. Courts can still accept it, but it is pretty much getting there to the point where it is junk science. There's been a lot of studies that say that you can't distinguish between the tool marking on a bullet or a casing or anything like that, between this gun and that.
Yeah, unless the barrel is damaged in the inside of some kind to leave a very unique. Now we're talking about microscopic scrapings, and the tools to make the barrels are really, really good.
Yeah,
they are down to the micrometer, and they do maybe 1,000 barrels. Then they put in a new tool, 1,000 barrels. Then they put in a new tool, 1,000 barrels, or 10,000. I don't know. I mean, now it's just bad science.
Yeah, it needs to be ruled out. We'll get it there. It'll get there eventually, but not just yet. Courts are still accepting it, but with very much skepticism.
Yeah,
So.
It scientifically speaking, it's less reliable than lie detector tests, and those are have been gone for quite some time now.
Yeah, those are not admissible. Fingerprints are on their way out too, really.
Yeah, not because they are unreliable per se, but because some countries use 4 markers. Some countries have 7 or 12. Well, it's a difference between states as well. And if you go down to that few markers on a partial fingerprint, it's just not that reliable.
Nick and I probably have 4 markers on our fingerprints that match.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with that.
Yeah. And,
yeah, it's not like taking a photocopy and laying it over top of an original and it lining up perfectly. That's not how fingerprints work. That's how most people think it works. But they pick between like 4 to 12 points and they say, well, if those match, then it's a match. It's good for establishing suspects. It's good to use in cooperation with other people
or rule
other
someone
evidence, I should
out,
say.
maybe, but not rule somebody into a scientific degree of certainty.
Yeah, and that's the exact same way that tool mark evidence on bullet casings and bullets are going to be, I think, used going forward, is to rule out rather than say definitively it's this.
Yeah, it will be an investigative tool, but it shouldn't be. Well, for instance, this tool mark here made us rule out these amount of suspects.
Yeah, that's how it should be used. And that's how I think fingerprints are going to start being used as well.
That's what people do when they want things such as items off their hands, they wash out. And that's what she did. And then we don't know what was in the middle of the bathroom that was causing her concern. But we know that she focused in on the bathroom area.
It was a dead body.
As well as
it was a
the
dead
closet.
body.
Again, we don't know exactly what was there. Perhaps that's where she dropped the knife and she needed to clean the knife there, because we know that the knife was cleaned. We know that the knife was not left behind. So again, there's this directed behavior with regard to the knife. Had the knife been dripping blood, and remember, she had just stuck it into his neck. Had that been happening, and had she been in this hysterical sort of mood that she wants you to believe, it's fair to say that that knife would have been bloody. She would have dropped blood along the way. No, she carried it out. She wants you to believe that she may have carried it down to the dishwasher. If she did carry it down to the dishwasher, which the state disputes, but we can use that for demonstrative purposes to show that knife, if it was carried downstairs, either had to be cleaned up upstairs or wrapped in something like a towel, which shows, again, directed behavior, so that no blood got on any of the stairs. Didn't get anywhere else. So if she says, which is what she said that sort of alluded to, that maybe that's what she did with the knife because no knife was found up there, and we do know that a knife was used in this attack. If she did that, she did something with the knife. She either cleaned it, stuck it in her purse, or according to her, even if you put it in the dishwasher, but you can't be sure about that, the behavior before the movement of the knife shows that she was thinking this whole thing through. If you step back and you say, what was she thinking at the time? Well, she was thinking of staging the scene, cleaning it. That's what she was doing. She cleaned the body of any DNA. She cleaned the area where it appears some of the attack occurred. The other implement, the knife, that was clean because it wasn't found or dripping anywhere. The gun, well, it was taken. The clothing that she had on her, specifically the footwear that you see in Exhibit 162, that wasn't found anywhere. There was no bloody spots anywhere. And even the towels that were upstairs, if you remember, there was one towel missing from the set.
She also didn't call the police and report a break-in of 2 ninjas at the
washing
house.
machine, and the cycle was run. It appears that the cycle was run with Clorox. And what's significant about that is that, yes, it's significant that Clorox was used, but what's also significant about it is that the hands were clean at the time the Clorox was grabbed, because otherwise you would have seen the handle with blood on it. You would have seen blood all over the washer. You didn't see that. She had already cleaned up upstairs, and she was cleaning up because she did not want to get caught. And it was actually, as plans go, pretty good, except for the photographs. So she's now.
Yeah, that photograph of her dragging him, Travis, back.
Yeah, that was a really bad one. By the way, it's kind of grainy on this image, but in my Discord, there is a really cleaned up version of it. And you can tell that it's her foot, it's his shoulder, it's covered in blood. And then in the interrogation video, she admits that those are her pants. Or she doesn't so much. She's like, I have those pants at home.
Yeah.
That's what she says. So
Yeah.
stupid.
I mean, everything goes back to she started talking to the cops.
Yeah.
She drew attention. Had they gotten to her eventually? Yeah. But she talked. And she talked. And then she talked some more. And then she talked.
So much talking.
Staged the scene. She's now cleaned up. There has been days of premeditation, but if you just take the scene itself, and we will discuss the jury instruction that tells you that it just requires a space of time. And killing somebody 3 times over has built into it a space of time, irrespective of which event you think happened first or happened last. It's the state's position that the stabbing happened first because of the...
A brief pause. Do you want to see something funny, Dave?
I'm always down to see something funny, especially in the middle of Jodi crying.
Yeah. Do you know Sarah Boone? Yeah. And she wrote a new letter to the judge.
Oh my God.
And in that, judge, she asks him to put up a poster in the break room because she wants an attorney to volunteer for her. Do you want to see that poster, Dave?
Please. I might volunteer for it. I could do a little pro hoc vice in Florida. Oh my God. Inmate seeks attorney. Looking for a
prosperous challenge.
Oh my God, prosperous challenge.
Ready for your close-up on national television. Are you zealous with a side of keen? Show the world who you are with your original creativity, extraordinary expertise, confident ingenuity. Qualifications must include, as if she can have that choice.
Qualifications must include. Oh, it's so hard to see all this. Hang on, I got to make the screen bigger.
No, here.
Being trustworthy, honest, passion-driven, open-minded, exceptional problem solve. Yeah, you need some problem-solving skills, Sarah. Client inclusion at all times. That should be like exclamation point. Team orientation, collaboration, extreme efficiency in listening.
Communicating, understanding, dedication.
Not just a good listener, not an efficient listener, extreme efficiency in listening. Oh my God. This is amazing. I'm going to volunteer. Faith in the client encased with the ability to think differently, overcome all circumstances. Oh my God.
Epic opportunity awaits.
Invest in the oppressed. Believe.
Well, if you are an attorney, but because that attorney will make a name for himself or herself.
Oh, I want to volunteer. I want to volunteer now.
Oh no. Yeah, well, you would be famous.
I want to volunteer to represent her.
Well, that's her inmate number, Orange County Corrections Department.
Like, I'm not licensed in the state of Florida. I might be able to get a Pro Hoc Vice application in if I had a sponsor. I know a few Florida attorneys.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Invest in the oppressed.
I'll volunteer and she'll look at my YouTube channel and be like, nope. What is extreme efficiency in listening? That's kind of my point, Ghost. It's not even just like a good listener, right? it's extreme efficiency in listening. Why does she talk that way? Do you think she talks that way or just writes that way?
Oh, it's both. I've heard her momentarily in court when they are in court. She is this way. She is an bad HOA president squared. I mean, if you imagine the absolute worst HOA president and make that president a criminal.
Yeah, you know
who-
what it looks like? It does look like a poster for like the sideshow at the circus.
Yeah, and it
You know?
will be. It is in. Yeah, it is.
It is a sideshow at the circus.
Oh, yeah. I just found that, and yeah, I got it sent to me, and I just wanted to. Oh, you need to
Wait,
see this
She
as a break in all the horrific thingies that we are listening to.
she does quote a Bible verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
not sure she can get an attorney.
There will be somebody. There will be somebody who wants to make a name for themselves, and then they will try to recuse themselves after a week.
God, when's her trial start? October,
I think. All right.
I need a sponsor. I'm going to apply.
Yeah. All right. I'm sending it over to you. All right. Let's get back to the trial.
Forensic evidence and the blood spatter evidence that's upstairs. Either way, she killed him 3 times over. She stabbed him in the heart. He would die from that. Certainly the throat was immediately fatal, and the gunshot would also have been fatal. So there is this premeditation aspect. And so she staged the scene at that point. Then she did some other things that were equally as interesting. And by interesting, I mean demonstrative of how well she was thinking at the time. She claims that she was in this sort of foggy state. She wasn't in such a foggy state that she couldn't put her license plate back on the car that she was driving on the back. She was in a hurry to put it on upside down, but she had already taken it off before and remembered to put it back on, such that she drove all the way to Utah that way and was stopped in West Jordan, Utah. So yeah, she was thinking there. She wasn't driving without a license plate, because police officers would have stopped you quicker without a license plate than one upside down. So thinking there. The other thing is she packed up the clothing that she was wearing. It was bloody. The socks included. Packed all of that up and took them with her. Cameras, her purse, the gun, all of that. She was cleaning it up, staging it up for the police, so that when the police went up there, they wouldn't even know what was going on. Got in the car and all the cleaning, and was sure and careful not to get it anywhere other than the bathroom. Walked out, and then on that hot summer June 4th, got into the car, left Napoleon behind, and started to drive away after putting the license plate on the car. And according to her, at some point, filling up with gas from the gas cans. If you're in such a fog, how can you even remember that you have gas cans? How can you possibly even remember that you have a gas can if you've never done it before? And she, according to her, this is not something that she did on a usual basis. Objection.
Overruled. The jury is directed to recall the evidence.
And away she goes down the road until, according to her, she stops on the side of the road, starts calling Ryan, and continues her lies. Starts calling Ryan and gave a story about where she had been. She lied to him. She wanted to continue that, speaking with him, because he could potentially say, well, no, she was with me. She was somebody that was with me at the time. So again, she's continuing to stage the scene for the police. What else does she do? If she didn't think that she had killed him, then why is it that she's calling and leaving a voicemail message as soon as she possibly can? Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't stop. If she was really in this state of fogginess, you would have heard some mumbling, or she would have been able to work the prompts on the phone. But she was able, according to her, keep going back and try to do the message. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many times did she say? Many, many times. She said she tried to do that. That shows some clarity of thought. And of course, though, she wants you to believe that there was no clarity of thought. She wants to manipulate you, wants to continue to lie. Why send an email? If you really didn't know what had happened, why send an email? Why not call the police? And why continue on your journey to make it seem normal? Why continue to make it seem normal? As if nothing had happened. The reason that you do that is because you had it planned. Ryan Burns was nothing more than her alibi. She showed, maybe he was a little bit more because of the interest that she showed. But she calls him up, makes up this story about where the cell phone has been, and continues on to Utah into his waiting arms. Gosh, you could almost hear the violins making their sound. As she goes up to him, gives him that first kiss. Isn't that romantic? And then later on, as they kiss passionately after going out, and she adjusts him, whatever that may mean, although according to her, he's full of crap. Anybody that doesn't agree with that, those are her words from the witness stand. He's wrong. And he's not telling the truth according to her. He doesn't have anything to gain. But he does tell you that, yes, they were involved, and they were involved in a sexual fashion when she gets up there. What a wonderful reunion, what a wonderful time it must have been for her. And so then there's this talk that she has with her friend Leslie Udy. And she begins to talk about the future with Mr. Alexander in it. How this Mr. Alexander that is going to be with her in the future after he's married and he has kids, she's married, she has kids, their children are going to play together. Absolutely staging the scene again, continually staging the scene so that if the police start making inquiries, guess what? Well, she didn't know he was dead. Boy, she was just normal with me, Mr. Burns would say. And with Leslie Udy, oh, she was talking about the future. Again, she's just staging the scene after what she has done. At the restaurant that they go to, there's this talk about her hands, and she, again, makes up a story as to how she got the injury to her hand, even though it's from the knife slipping as she was knifing Mr. Alexander to death. And then afterwards, her friend, Dan Freeman, calling her on the telephone and telling her, oh, his body has been found. And she crying and calls the bishop, trying to determine whether or not he was alive. What an absolute facade. She's creating a wall of excuses, a wall of absolute, what appears to be impenetrable might, so that no one can assail her. No one can say that she had anything to do with this because she's acting the part. And she's lying. She's making it all up. She has lied to everybody, and she has staged the scene. She staged the scene of the murder. And then she came into court, and during these proceedings, has staged her defense. And she staged her defense by lies. And the lies that she told were to a number of people, and to various groups of people. First of all, let's start with you. Perhaps it may be that in court, because of the admonition and standing in front of the clerk, that somehow that would bring out the truth, because after all, this is a truth-finding sort of proceeding. Well, let's start with some of the examples that we can talk about that we know that she lied to you about. This issue about the gas cans, absolutely, without a shadow of doubt, she's a liar. And she's a liar about, number one, that she returned it to Walmart, and she's a liar about the fact that she didn't have them with her in Salt Lake City. It's just a lie. And the reason she's lying is that explains why there are no receipts here in Arizona. And that also goes to premeditation. She planned to come and kill Mr. Alexander with that .25 caliber and that knife from May 28th on. That's what the evidence shows. One of the things that you can say to yourself, well, you don't have any direct evidence of that. That's true. We have circumstantial evidence. And circumstantial evidence is a fact that you can deduce from looking at the circumstances as opposed to direct evidence, which is visual or hearing, sensory kind of evidence. The best example from looking at the circumstances as opposed to direct evidence, which is visual or hearing, sensory kind of evidence. The best example of what time of year it is, and you're there by yourself. And you're standing there and you're watching the waves come in. As you stand there from your left, somebody walks by and then goes to your right. A minute or so later, somebody else comes to you and says, has there anybody else been on this beach? And you can say, sure, I just saw him walk by. That's direct evidence. Well, contrast that with circumstantial evidence. You are at the same beach. You have not seen anybody go by. You have not seen any fingerprints. You haven't seen anything. And you decide that it's a nice day and you're going to close your eyes. With circumstantial evidence, you are at the same beach. You have not seen anybody go by. You have not seen any fingerprints. You haven't seen anything. And you decide that it's a nice day and you're going to close your eyes. You have your Wayfarer sunglasses on. You have your towel out. You're going to lay down and you close your eyes for exactly, let's say, a minute. And before you closed your eyes, you notice that there were no footprints here, no footprints in front of you, and no footprints there. And the ocean's not coming up to you. Close your eyes and you wake up, and when you, for those 45 seconds or so, and then you look, and to your left is a set of human footprints. You see it goes right in front of you, and then it goes by. You didn't hear anything, you didn't hear anybody, but you can say yes. And the reason that you can say yes is because of the footprints that you saw after you woke up. And the same thing here. There are many footprints to this premeditation aspect. One of the footprints that we have is up in Wairika, California, after the May 26th, 2008 argument where he tells her, "You're the worst thing that ever happened to me." Then you have her stealing the gun, or the gun is stolen, and it's a .25 caliber that's actually found at the scene. After that, you have her borrowing some gas cans, and then you have her lying about those gas cans. And then you have her lying about the license plate, and you have her turning off her phone so that she can't be found in Arizona. And then you have the photographs, and you have the rest of the evidence in this case. She premeditated the murder in this case. The other thing that we need to talk about in terms of what she told you that is not true is why she rented the car in Reading. She said, oh, that's the place that Priceline would give her the best deal. But you saw the receipts, not the receipts, but the statement from Washington Mutual that indicated that, hey, she paid directly a budget. So that wasn't a Priceline thing. She looked at each and every one of you, and that's what she told you. Well, that's because, of course, she's innocent. And you as a jury are not going to convict her, right? The other thing that she talked to you about was this.
You know he does, Salvador. You know he does.
She said that she showed you the finger and she demonstrated it to you. And she said that Mr. Alexander had been the person that actually had done that to her. Well, if you remember during cross-examination, when she was being asked about what happened in her killing of Mr. Alexander, the question was, well, you really didn't get any injuries. I mean, aside from the injury to the head, do you remember? That's all that you got then. And then she said, oh, no, I also got the injury to my finger. Do you remember her saying that? In a moment of candor, in a moment when she wasn't quite expecting it, she said, yes, that's when it happened. Yet then she turns around and says later, no, that's not how I got it. I got it working for Casa Ramos, Margaritaville. I got it at his house. Who knows? But she looked at you straight in the face about an event that occurred at the time of the killing. And she looked you in the face, every single one of you, after taking the oath, and lied to you. Maybe this law of attraction, maybe something else, maybe that will explain it, or maybe her experts will explain these three areas that you know, or maybe not. She just made them up to you. And why did she make them up? Because although she says no jury will convict her, it's because she's attempting to get you or manipulating you to get to that particular point. One of the other things that perhaps we need to look at or talk about is their experts. And with regard to their experts, and with regard to the defense that's presented, one of the things that perhaps you can sort of allude to and maybe make reference to when you're looking at this particular defense is by reference to Elizabeth Barrett Browning in a sonnet, where she indicated that, and again, it's just a reference to it, how do I love thee, let me count the lies. It's a little bit of a reference to it, but that's not exactly what she said. But really, how do I love thee, let me count the lies. Well, we've counted 3 so far that in this court, looking at each of you, she said that. What else can we look at? Well, perhaps we can look at the motivation, or perhaps we can look at people that have testified on her behalf, and maybe we can understand what's going on. We can talk, for example, about Alice Laviolette. She's the person who has a master's, who came in and has been doing this for a long time. And one of the things that Alice Laviolette has, and she has an extensive CV or resume, is one of the things she hasn't included in there is that she is also a liar. That is just the bottom line. She came in here and she told you in response to one of your questions about whether or not she had ever testified on behalf of a male in court. And she said 1 or 2 times. Remember that? And when she was pressed by the prosecutor during cross-examination, well, who are they? Couldn't give me the name. Give me a name. Go ahead, give me a name. Pressed even further, she said, well, I didn't testify. I actually wrote a report. She wanted to make herself more than she really was. She also talked about being a keynote speaker at one of the conferences where was Snow White a battered woman. She indicated that she was one of the keynote speakers there at one of those conferences, and she wasn't. Her CV indicated that she was on the plenary panel.
This is so unnecessary.
Yeah.
This part.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of. It could have been done an hour ago.
Yeah, or saved for rebuttal, because the defense will definitely bring her up, and then he can destroy her on the rebuttal instead.
Yeah. You know, his rebuttal is going to be just as long. This is where, we have these sensational trials, and then afterwards, like most trials, the judge isn't like you have 15 minutes or an hour to give your closing. But these sensational televised trials, the judges are starting to give time limits. And this is why.
Yeah.
And none of this has to be said. He's been going now this is our second full stream of his closing.
Yeah.
And we're at 1.25.
Yeah. It was around 20-25 minutes of jury instructions, and the rest is him. And we have 50 minutes left of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just part of people that go there, and she made a presentation to a smaller group. And just as importantly, with regard to lying and Alice Laviolette, she indicated and tried to justify the defendant's lies for you so that you wouldn't think that they were so bad. She kept saying, well, she lied before, but not afterwards. And we got into this conversation about lying, and Alice Laviolette said, well, you know, bad. She kept saying, well, she lied before, but not afterwards. And we got into this conversation about lying, and Alice Laviolette said, well, you know, there are such things as white lies. Those are okay. See, you don't understand. For her and for the defendant, white lies, they're okay. And if it's to her benefit to say that something is a white lie, she will say that it is a white lie. And in this case, everything that's negative towards the defendant, and it is untruthful, well, that's just a white lie, according to Alice Laviolette. And to her, that you as an expert, because they're trying to provide guidance and say, yes, I have testified on behalf of men before, and then going back and saying, no, that's not true. Measure, but maybe that's a guide to the defendant. Maybe that's something that she, of course, believes. Maybe that's something that buttresses the defendant's case, and Alice Laviolette believes that that's something that she should do. But what that indicates is that she's nothing more than an advocate. When you begin lying on behalf of the person that you evaluated, when you begin to visit them, when you begin to give them books, when you're with them for 44 hours, that line was crossed. Anything Alice Laviolette said is contaminated. It is foul. It is not something that you should consider, because how much credibility can you give her if she came up here and in advocating that position, she lied to you? Absolutely no worth at all. And then you have Dr. Richard Samuels. And one of the things about Dr. Samuels was that, and the issue involving lying, is one of the things that he did is that he had trouble with regard to this scoring and rescoring. And there were some issues as to really what the motivation was for the rescoring. Dr. Janine DeMarte indicated that, well, there's no reason to be rescoring something 3 times unless you perhaps want to change the scores. Or with regard to the MCMI, there's no reason to submit it twice unless perhaps you might want to change the scores. But one of the things that we do know about Dr. Samuels is that he gave the PDS test. And there is
he
no
was talking about the
doubt
man-hating cat
as to
woman.
that test that the defendant lied. The defendant made it up.
The
There
founder
is no,
of the Me Too.
truth
Or not
to the
Me Too,
fact that on
Believe All
question
Women.
14, number 4, that whatever seminal event that they're talking about, there was never any indication whatsoever that there was a guy and a girl that came in and killed Mr. Alexander. But he based his test on that. And the defense and the questions may be asked about whether or not it involved an attack on a tiger, or if it involved the attack on a bear, or if it involved a gopher. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is that it's a lie. Let's say that somebody goes to the doctor, and they go to the doctor and they're talking about some sort of pain that they have. And if they start lying about the pain, isn't the treatment going to be affected by it? How good is the workup going to be if the seminal event that you're there for is a lie? Well, yeah, you can say she suffered trauma. Okay, let's assume that you can go that far and say the PDS does show that she suffered trauma. Well, which trauma are we talking about? Is it the bear? Is it the tiger? Is it the gopher? Or, in our case, is it the trauma of lying about killing Mr. Alexander? Is that what we're talking about? Or is it the killing of Mr. Alexander that we're talking about? Or, as the other expert, Cheryl Karp, found, was it the trauma of this non-existent domestic violence? The problem is that when you start lying and the experts get involved and they start basing their test on a lie, how valid can the results be? For example, Cheryl Karp found that, yes, she believed it was post-traumatic stress disorder based on many, many events of domestic violence. Yet there are only 4 that were presented to you and never linked to post-traumatic stress disorder. Then there's this test, a PDS, that was taken, and according to Dr. Samuels, he said, you know what? I probably should have re-administered it. In a moment of candor, he said that. And yet he then reversed his position and changed it. But again, what do we have here? Another lie by the defendant. Not only to Dr. Samuels, but also to Dr. Karp or Janine DeMarte. Dr. Janine DeMarte. Either one. You can't have a lot of domestic violence or a little bit of domestic violence. So you have that issue that is sort of floating out there with regard to the experts. The other area that the defendant lied about was the police. Detective Ford? Oh.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, 15 minutes. Please be back at 3 o'clock.
He's gone through 2 breaks.
15 minutes. You are excused. Please remember the admonition.
Oh, he's gone through lunch and afternoon session. Jesus.
Oh,
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all
Hang on.
counsel. Mr. Martinez, you may continue.
no, I saw your question. But they can't argue sympathy. They can only argue facts. So they can't say do it because it would be good for the victims, or choose between the victims or the victim and his family or her. That's an improper argument. That might actually be grounds for a mistrial. Right at the end of the case. You can't argue that. You can only argue the evidence. That's why if you hear some of the objections are facts, not in evidence. And judge says to the jury, you remember the evidence, recall the evidence.
We were talking about the litany of the defendant's lies, and we were at a point where we were going to talk about the lies to the police officers. And you've heard so much about that almost there's an effect such as, well, she did it. It's let's accept it and move on. But it is an important factor, not because it isn't important because she lied, but because of how it fits into her particular plan. And one of the things that we have to think about when we talk about lies is that, and you think about what she told the police officers, is that maybe there was some exaggeration that was going on with regard to what she told the police officer, or maybe there was some minimization that was going on. In terms of exaggeration, one of the points that needs to be made is that Robert Geffner, who was here yesterday talking to you, and said, well, exaggeration really isn't a lie. Well, it is, because it's not the truth. And so some of the things that the defendant told the police officer, well, exaggeration really isn't a lie. Well, it is, because it's not the truth. And so some of the things that the defendant told the police officers, somebody may say, well, no, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Maybe it isn't. But at the time that she spoke to the police officers, it had been something to think about what was going to happen if she spoke to the police. And so it's important from the aspect of somebody who's thinking about it, somebody who is planning. It shows that this individual had the forethought to have a story ready when the police officer came to her. And this individual is of such strong will that even in the face of what the police officer was talking to her about, she would actually not budge initially when she was spoken to by the police officer. For example, one of the things that she was asked on the first interview, well, isn't it true that you were there? She kept saying, no, I wasn't even there. How could I have possibly done this if I wasn't even there? And then she was asked, well, isn't it true that your fingerprint or your palm, it was actually a palm print, but the fingerprint, isn't it true that the fingerprint and blood was there? And she said, well, of course it's there. I've been there all this time. And so it shows you the adaptability and how nimble this individual is, such that when she gets in any situation, whether it be involving Mr. Alexander or here in court, this individual is quick thinking and is good on her feet. And so that when she's talking to you on cross-examination and you get those answers are designed to manipulate. And so that's why those statements to the police are important, because they show how she can attempt to manipulate things and is able to say whatever fits the story at the time. So initially, when the police came to her, when Detective Flores came to her and asked her, well, this is what we have, let's talk about it. She denied everything. And she kept saying, let me see the photographs. I want to see the photographs. The reason she wanted to see the photographs is because she wanted to conform her story to what the police knew, or what she thought the police knew. And in fact, in other conversations, during the telephone conversations, they discussed it. And that just shows you this type of individual that can adapt, if you will, as she's going along with the interview with the police officer. And in asking to see the photographs, it's interesting that she asks that. And the only reason that I mention it is because previously, when I was showing the photographs of the killing of Mr. Alexander, we had the defendant crying. Well, why did you want to see the photographs when the police officer was there? You knew what had happened, and yet she's still asking to see it. Again, it's just another form of manipulation to have you feel some sympathy for her as she sits there with the red nose, face down, apparently crying. But yet she asks the police officer, can I take a look at these photographs? The police officer, of course, did not show her the photograph. So the first story on July 15th is, wasn't even there. Wasn't even there. Then has overnight to think about it, and on July 16th, changes it to something else, because it'll make much more sense. Because now she knows a little bit about what they have there. She wants to now be able to say that she was there. But what does she do? She says, not just that she was there, but she makes herself the hero. Just switching it up. Not only does she say that she was there, but she makes herself the hero in the sense that she pushes the woman down. And he has the gun pointed to her head, and you know, by luck is not killed, but she's able to push people aside, and then she wraps it up by saying, "Oh, you know, I wish I could have stayed there. I should have fought more. I did fight, but I should have fought more." And then away I went. Again, trying to paint herself, not only that she was there, but again that she was this hero, attempting to not only tell a different story, but to manipulate that story to make her look better. Years go by, and then we have the story that we have now. This nonstop litany of lies by the defendant just does not stop. She has lied to various groups of people. She has lied, as we said, to you. She has lied to the medical health care professionals. She's lied to the police, and she's even lied to the media, something that she has craved. This individual here craves the media, loves the media, went on national television to talk about this. And what did she do? Not only did she lie to them, but she made herself seem like such a calm person. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Didn't tell any of the things that we see here today. And of course, it's not a confessional when you go there, but it is demonstrative of the fact that she's a chameleon, and she'll adjust to the situation and make up whatever stories are appropriate for her at the time, whether it be the media or somebody else. The same can be said.
How many names can we give this woman?
The people that she has, the friendships that she has. She lies to them, and she does things that almost make you step back and say, well, what could you possibly gain by that? When, for example, she talks to Leslie Jdi and makes up this thing about, you know, her kids and Mr. Alexander's kids playing together. She didn't have to go that far. The point I'm trying to make is that these lies are lies, but then she goes even further with them just to sell them, to manipulate the person into thinking that they're actually true. For example, with Leslie Jdi, you could have just said, oh yeah, you know, I speak to Travis every now and then, but then she adds, oh, but I want our kids to play together. When Dan Freeman called her, well, she didn't have to, after he called her and said, I don't know, you know what happened, but Travis is dead, she didn't have to then go and talk to the bishop. She does these things because she's such an ornate liar. It just has to add the extras to it to really sell it. And that's what she did for you for all of those times all of those days that she testified to you. And the reason that I bring that up, this ornate storytelling, is because it applies to her defense and her defense really is based on lies. It really is. And if you can say, for example, oh, this was, she presented it as if it was in self-defense, but not only did she present it as if it were in self-defense, she added some ornate lies to it. For example, one of the things that she added was this physical violence that supposedly Mr. Alexander inflicted upon her. But she doesn't just say that he inflicted these 4 incidents of violence. She goes into great detail about it. For example, she talks about the one in August of 2007 where he goes upstairs and he's banging his head up against the wall, just very flowery, very out there, because then she's again the center of attention. She's being the calm one. She's being the person that is the individual that you would look to for the answers. It's not just the lies. She's a very good liar, but she, on top of that, is a very sophisticated liar in the sense that she adds these extra elements to it. And she did that with regard to the acts of domestic violence. And they are lies. If we are to look at her journals and sit back and take a look at what she writes, those journals tell you that there were no acts of domestic violence. Have you been given any reason whatsoever other than this law of attraction and other than another Alice Laviolette, somebody who has trouble with the truth, other than that, vouching for them, do you have any reason that what is being written there? Do you have anything that the defendant has said that has corroborated in terms of the domestic violence? You have the journal entries indicating that they did not happen. You have friends indicating that they never saw it. You don't have any medical reports, any police reports. You don't have anything. And as we get talking about these, there are lies, and then there are monumental, huge lies. And she made this up because that fit her defense. And one of the other things that she did with regard to this is that not only did she make up this lie for her defense, the other thing that she did is that she created a lie that really involves behavior that is a hot button kind of topic. How horrific it is to be accused falsely of being a pedophile. He's not here.
Say that on my YouTube channel.
He's not here to say, no, that's not true.
That's I'm Jello.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. We're good.
She can say to Alice Laviolette that it was on computer images, but then Alice Laviolette comes in and says, no, that's not what she told me. But remember, Alice Laviolette has a problem with the truth. And so Snake goes to the computer and doesn't find anything there. Oh, no, I changed my mind. It was actually images. They were like this. And how does one defend that when there are no images there? The police looked through the attic. The police looked everywhere. How absolutely hateful. And how does one defend that when there are no images there? The police looked through the attic. The police looked everywhere. How absolutely hateful that allegation is, and how absolutely extensive she was with it. But remember I said that she went a little too far with these lies? First of all, her journal indicates that there wasn't such an event. Second of all, the text messages also indicate the same thing. And what human being, if that is the allegation, if they really are caring, what human being doesn't go to the police and say, or somebody else, this person is. What she does, well, it's the new approach. It's the new, and she talks about all these phone calls going back and forth, and that also doesn't match. What she does, well, it's the new approach. It's the new approach to pedophilia. What does she do? Well, let's jump in the sack. That's what we're going to do. At least that's what she tells you now.
She did
But with
say
regard
that.
to Alice Laviolette, no, she didn't. She can't even keep that together. If that is the truth, and if that is what happened, wouldn't you expect that her journal, if she had it, if she didn't write about it, at least wouldn't have said that nothing noteworthy. It's fortunate that the police did have Mr. Alexander's laptop, and there weren't any images of children on it, none whatsoever. It's fortunate that the police did have Mr. Alexander's laptop, and there weren't any images of children on it, none whatsoever. They checked throughout the house. There was nothing inside of the house that indicated anything like that. There weren't any photographs. There wasn't anything. And so this allegation of hers, whether it was on the computer or whether it was in photograph form, just went a little bit too far. These lies to take from Mr. Alexander, the only thing that he has left, his reputation, it's just a little bit too much to, in light of what we know, in light of what she says, it's just too much even in this particular. That person does not deserve justice. That person doesn't deserve anything because of what he did. It's so easy for her to make these allegations.
Did the
That
stream get
person does not deserve
demonetized? Really?
justice. That person doesn't deserve
Yeah,
anything.
at yellow,
because of what
so
he
not
did.
completely
It's so easy for
demonetized,
her to
but,
make these allegations. It's so easy for her to
not
get up on the stand.
advertiser-friendly
As you've seen,
content. For
And
some
this
odd reason.
is really the pinnacle. It doesn't get any higher or worse or lower, whatever way you want to look at it, than that. Well, how do you judge that allegation? Well, the judge has. How do you judge these sorts of allegations? Well, just like everything in this case, there are rules. And those
Yeah, he
rules
has
are
no idea what he
restrictions,
said
such as the ones that
or
have
what
been
he's
read
going
to
to be
you
saying.
today.
Hmm.
And one jury instruction particularly deals with this aspect.
He knows you, Rosie.
It says instruction. I know the judge has read it, but because it's so important, it is worth my referencing it because it directly relates to instruction. I know the judge has read it, but because it's so important, it is worth my referencing it because it directly relates to the two primary allegations in this case, that of physical abuse and the fact that Mr. Alexander was interested in little boys and girls, according to her. It tells you that in deciding the facts of this case, you should consider what testimony to accept and what to reject. What it's telling you there is that you ultimately decide whether or not this person here, who is the epitome of a liar, whether this individual, what you're going to accept or reject what she tells you. Are you going to pick and choose some things of what she says and then accept some other things? How is it that you can know with any certainty whatsoever whether or not she's telling the truth about anything? It says you may accept everything a witness says, or part of it, or none of it. The state submits to you that you are, based on what you've seen, based on what you've heard, and based on the testimony of others, you should accept none of it. It doesn't mean that the 18 days that she was on the witness stand are wasted. No. What that means is that you're finally able to see this individual in the light of day. You're able to see how she reacts. Doesn't matter where. And this instruction then goes on and says, in evaluating testing every one of you in the eye and lie. Doesn't matter where. And this instruction then goes on and says, in evaluating testimony, you should use the tests for truthfulness that people use in determining matters of importance in everyday life. Important matters. What kind of has lied to them consistently about major aspects of their life. People will not go to a doctor who lies to them. And the factors that you are to consider are the witness's ability to see or people will not go to a doctor who lies to them. And the factors that you are to consider are the witness's ability to see or hear. The quality of her memory is incredible. Absolutely incredible. She was there. She knows. The quality of the witness's memory. The quality of her memory is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Down to follicles of hair. Unless it hurts her. Then the fog rolls in. Then there's an excuse. Then there's a reason why she doesn't remember. She has an incredible memory, all right, when it comes to lying. And the witness's manner while testifying, how it was that she testified, how it was that the defendant testified. Well, you saw her at times attempt to cry. You saw her at times get angry to somehow make the person that was asking the questions the villain, saying, well, you're scrambling my brain. It's not my fault. Again, it's not my fault. It's the fact that you're asking me these questions, just like Travis. That's exactly what's going on here. So that's not my fault that I keep lying here on the witness stand.
Sorry, what you say?
The stream sometimes skips back for some reason. The one that we're streaming from, it was an original production from LNC Word, so I don't know what's up with that. But at least it's not as bad as it was last week or 2 weeks ago. That was really bad.
Yeah.
It's yours because of the way you're asking me the questions, the fact that you're raising your voice. That's whose fault it is. And that's why I can snap at you from the witness stand. I can smirk at you from the witness stand and look knowingly towards the jury because it's not her fault. It's the person who's asking the questions. Whether or not the witness had a motive, bias, or prejudice, if there is any witness in this case who had a motive to lie, it's this defendant. She's the person that's charged. All of the other witnesses that came here, some of them had a motive. For example, Alice Laviolette, she had a motive to lie. I mean, maybe perhaps it was her reputation that she was interested in or things like that. All the other individuals, for example, Ryan Burns, why would he want to lie about anything? He lives in Utah. He just met her at one time. There's no reason to believe that he was going to be making these things up. Amanda Webb, why would she want to come in here after all the work that she's done and make things up? The only person with a motive is the defendant. So when evaluating her testimony, that's something that you need to consider. When it's to her benefit, she's going to lie. Whether the witness, the defendant, was contradicted by anything the witness said or wrote before trial. Well, she wrote, for example, in terms of these two allegations involving the pedophilia and involving the domestic violence, that they didn't happen.
I never watched her sentencing.
Additionally, she never told anybody.
No, maybe
Nick, depending. Yeah, I was just going to say, depending on what timeline we have when we're in the treehouse, maybe we want to just do her own statements upon sentencing. That would be good.
Only her statement in sentencing.
Yeah, we might do that.
And the reports out there, if there aren't any reports that would corroborate what she said. So, in terms of the pedophilia, well, she says it was on the computer. Well, the computer doesn't show that. And they even went back and looked and traced and looked everywhere. The house, there was no implements, if you will, or anything associated with that kind of conduct. And so in this case, nothing supports what the defendant said. And then you're asked to take a look at the reasonableness of her testimony in light of the other evidence. In order for her to prevail in this case, in order for you to believe her, because it actually comes down to whether or not you believe her. If you believe her, then certainly you can apply the jury instructions. But it comes down to whether or not you believe her. The other evidence, all of the other evidence that's out there contradicts her. So you have to go against all of the evidence that's out there, turn your back on all of that, and say, I believe her, therefore I'm going to find in her favor. State submits to you that in light of everything, that's not something that you should do. So what standard do you apply? Well, the standard that you apply is the burden of proof instruction, which tells you proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you firmly convinced of a defendant's guilt. Firmly convinced is the term. Not any of the other terms that you may have heard anywhere else in life. It's just firmly convinced. And it does tell you there are very few things in this world that we know with absolute certainty. So absolute certainty is not required. And it does say that criminal law, that the law does not require proof that overcomes every doubt. That's not what we're talking about here. You just need to be firmly convinced. If, based on your consideration of the evidence, you are firmly convinced that the defendant is guilty of the crime charged.
Firmly convinced?
I don't think that's the standard.
No, but there's no objection.
Yeah, that seems weird.
Firmly convinced, I think it's more of a civil standard.
Well, so the civil standard is preponderance of the evidence or clear and convincing evidence. Those are the
Yeah.
two civil standards.
Yeah, firmly convinced is more at the line of the clear and convincing, not beyond
Yeah.
reasonable doubt. That's
Yeah, that's a weird phrase.
yeah. But
Okay.
if it's in the jury instructions, it's there.
No, I think they have a problem with their jury instructions.
Find her guilty. That's how it reads, and that's the procedure that you indicated that.
Hey, Toddly Pip, member for 14 months. Wow, that's almost an elephant pregnancy. Martin is waffled, but huge pressure on him, in my humble opinion. Okay, yeah.
Maybe.
Hmm.
You would follow should you be chosen to go back there to resolve this case. Once you make that inquiry and once you find the defendant guilty, that's the end of the inquiry. The other language that falls after that involves you finding reasonable doubt. But if you find, based on your consideration of the evidence, that you are firmly convinced, that's the end of the inquiry. You don't need to go any further. And there is only one charge in this case.
I don't like that jury instruction
It's
at all.
first-degree murder. And first-degree murder can be committed in one of two ways. Obviously, you know this, that there is not two charges of first-degree murder. There is only one. But there are different ways in which these can be committed.
Yep, Justin,
First,
he's still
premeditated murder, or second is felony murder. With regard to felony murder, with regard to premeditated murder, there are lesser included offenses, as the jury instructions have told you. There are other offenses, not necessarily lesser, but other offenses that are involved. With regard to felony murder, there are no lesser included offenses. So, for example, if you are considering felony murder, there are no other offenses that are to be considered. The only issue with regard to felony murder is whether or not, in the course of a felony, she killed him. That's basically what the law says. And if you find that, that's the end of the inquiry. You don't consider lesser included offenses. Premeditated murder does have these lesser offenses. But in terms of the tabulation that takes place at the end, for example, 9 of you could find that this was premeditated murder, 3 of you could find that this was felony murder, and it's still first-degree murder. You do not have to be unanimous as to the theory involving the murder. Or you could be 6 and 6, or it could be 12 for premeditated murder and 12 for felony murder. It's still only one charge. You do not have to be unanimous as to the theory of the crime. And let's talk about premeditated murder. Well, it requires that it be proven that the defendant caused the death of another person. Well, exhibit number 207, he's dead. That element is proven. Well, the defendant intended or knew that she would cause the death of another person.
There's another 40 minutes of him. Do you want to save that for next Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to finish him today.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, let's save it.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, tonight on my Lego Law channel, I have Cope and Seath coming on. It's going to be amazing.
Nice.
You guys got to check it out. If you guys don't know Cope and Seath, then you're in for a treat because he's quite interesting. He originates in the gaming community, so a lot of people don't know him from our community, but he does a lot of internet drama, we'll say. So he'll be a good interview. I just put it in the chat, a link for that tonight, because in 4 hours, Mo in the Deep is having a birthday stream, and I'll be making an appearance, I think. Nick, are you?
Yep. And so I will be redirecting to her birthday stream. So you can go there, subscribe to her if you haven't yet, and have that notify me thingy, the bell.
I have no idea how long the defense is. I would just stand up and say everything that guy just said was bullshit and then be done. Yeah, so check out Mo's tonight. You guys will all be redirected there, although it's not going for 4 hours. So just hit the notification button. and then come back to me on my other channel. I
Mm.
just put in the chat for Lego Law tonight with Cope and Seath.
Yep. All right. Besides going on Mo's tonight, I might have a video up a bit later. I'm going to cut out the part where we discuss the Sarah Boone thing.
Sarah Boone, yeah.
Yeah, the poster.
Send
So
me
that
a
will
link
be
to
a-
that. I will share that out. That's amazing.
All right. Well, Sunday or my day off. Monday, it's back with Young Thug updates. There should be new filings and everything. Okay. That's
Very cool. Thanks, guys, for hanging with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we will see you either on Mo's, on Dave's, or on Monday. Okay.
Somewhere.
Somewhere around there. And sending you off with a song. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
In a little town where things aren't what they seem, there lived a girl named Jodi with a tricky little scheme. She went to the courtroom where she told a little lie, but the truth came out. Oh my, it wasn't ninjas or pirates as she tried to claim. Jodi was the culprit, she was the one to blame, but in this